So as you can see, we have the teacher training course introduction up, and the first slide is saying why. So Alex and Anas, yeah, why do you want to learn how to teach as a specialist in the Quranic field?
The best of Muslims are those who teach the Qur'an and pass it to others.
What do you think, Anas?
I was going to say same.
There you go,
Bruh.
Allah Barakah. Very, yeah, subhanAllah. To even my motivation is also like my teacher used to say, my Hifz teacher, this hadith. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best of you is the one who learns the Quran and teaches it. And even on this whole journey of learning the Quran and then teaching it myself, like you realize more and more what it means to actually learn it and teach it, the more you go forward with it. Like in the beginning, it was just doing hifz and learning the whatever you can of Quran and teaching it. And of course that is what it is. Whatever you know of the Quran, you teach it, and that's the best thing you can do. But then as you go forward and forward and forward, you realize what is the benefit of actually having the Quran in your life, and why is it so beneficial to teach the Quran itself. So yeah, the most beneficial thing you can have in your life is the Quran. And maybe I go through it in here, maybe not. But in the introduction to the whole course, in the intro, which I will actually be giving, I haven't given yet, to the whole cohort, we talk about that. So in this module, which is a teacher specialist module of training, we're going to start with our intentions. So first of all, yes, intentions and spiritual grounding, and why are we doing this? Then move through the principles of teaching, and basically that just means how and what's most effective, and principles of that. Then you're actually going to practice it, and I'm going to monitor it. And the technical skills that you need are what we actually did before. We looked at that previously. Okay. The goal is what? To be a guide. Okay. So you're holding the student's hand from the first letter of the alphabet to their whole life in the Quran. So not just recitation, but living in the Quran. So may Allah make us amongst His chosen people. Okay. Before teaching and before everything, before you embark in anything, you want to have a grounded purpose. And you'll find that if you move away from this purpose, you'll get tired with what you do, and you'll become hollow. So purpose is very important. So before any single lesson is planned or any student comes onto the program, you want to anchor yourself in that purpose. If not, then it will actually be treated, the Quran, as an academic thing that's just being studied. And a lot of times in university, you see, people are studying with no soul. And they lack motivation because there's no soul to the studies. There's no proper purpose in what they're actually studying most of the time for a lot of courses, right? I'm not saying that as a general statement, but obviously some courses may do practical things where they're actually learning to solve problems. If you're actually solving a problem, then you're actually doing something with purpose. But if you're not solving a problem, right, then there's no soul to it. So what is the purpose, right? Before we get to that, the Quran would be our companion in the grave, our intercessor on Day of Judgment, and take us to the highest ranks of Jannah. So teaching this is one of the best things you can do. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه, as you said. The best of you are those who learn the Quran teaching. So what is the purpose then? And this is always where it goes back to. There's always one goal, Allah. Right? So everything we do and every recitation we do, every lesson we teach, every moment of reflecting on anything with the creation of Allah or the Qur'an is all at the core of it the pursuit of Allah's nearness and His pleasure. Allah alone. And I remember then this hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said, this, I am as my slave thinks of me. I am with him when he remembers me. If he remembers me within himself, I remember him within myself. If he remembers me in a gathering, I remember him in a gathering better than them. If he draws near to me by a handspan, I draw near to him by an arm's length. If he draws near to me by an arm's length, I draw near to him by a fathom. If he comes to me walking, I go to him running. That is subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah remembers us in a greater manner. Right? And going back to him, Allah comes back to us in a greater manner. Subhanallah. So what can we do to go as near as possible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? If what we want is Allah's closeness and His pleasure, what can we do that's most efficient? And Khabbab bin Arat then, radallahu anhu, he's a Sahabi, said, do anything basically to draw near to Allah as much as you can. But know that you will never draw near to Him with anything more beloved to Him than His own. So this is Allah's speech. Right? So can you tell me, one of you, I'll pick Alex. Why is it that using Allah's speech is the most efficient way to get close to Allah, like in an instant?
Because it's His speech.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that a bit, just to make sure that someone that's listening understands what you just said? Like, what is it that even mean?
As in, Allah is the
But
one who sent out the Qur'an. So if we learn it and we teach it and we spread it to others, then it shows that we're, paying attention to what Allah is sending down to us and following His commandments.
okay, so you said Allah sent it down. I wasn't looking for that. Yes, He did, but I was looking for a word that's different, because you said it's Allah's speech. Anas, can
Yeah.
you maybe have a try?
I was thinking more along the lines of like to know someone is to like love them. So like to know more about Allah through His speech is to essentially love Him.
Okay.
But this
What?
doesn't really. It's more so specific to this hadith, not really towards like teaching. This hadith specifically talks about just his speech, not about like teaching his or sharing his speech.
Okay, so what is it about Allah's speech that's different to a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about Allah?
What do you mean? It's as in like it's directly what Allah says.
Directly, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the word I wanted, directly. So it's literally directly Allah's speech. You're directly in conversation with Allah talking. So obviously, like in intuitively, if you're talking to someone, is it gonna get better than that to get to know someone if you're talking to them? Do
Yeah,
you get
it
do you
won't
get
get.
any better than that? No. So the most direct way you can get to know Allah is by talking to Him and listening to Him through His words, right? So He is talking to you through His speech, and you're also having conversation with Him through your heart and your reactions, what you do, and the way you're reciting. The whole recitation is a conversation. It always has been, always will be, a conversation between you and Allah, right? So yeah, that is what I was looking for. That's why it's so. That's why it's the best way. If I was to now, like I am now, talking about Allah and talking about His speech, we are getting somewhere, but it's still just third person. You want to go straight to the source. You want to go straight to the person, like you are with me now, you're talking to me, you had got to know me before, but you want to get to know someone personally, on a personal level, you get to know him well. So that's how you get closer to Allah most effectively, of course. Okay. So with that in mind, obviously sharing Allah's speech will also be a source of closeness, right? Whether it's because you're sharing that conversation with another person, and also it shows mastery that you understand, and you're actually learning more about Allah's conversation when you're teaching it. It's basically the best field to be in. The best place to be in is that conversation with Allah, whether you're sharing it or reciting it yourself. All of that interaction, all of it, is the closest support you can be. Yeah, do you get it?
Yes.
So why would sharing Allah's speech then also be a part of being directly being in contact?
Well, because it just shows like how invested you are, I guess, in it. Yeah?
Yeah, so you're in deep and with the Qur'an basically. Yeah, and you get to know more about it. Allah, you when you teach, you will learn a lot more about whatever you're interacting with when you teach it. Right. Okay. Now this is a compilation I've took from verses in the Quran that are many, and there's more than this that the Quran talks about itself. So, for example, can I zoom in? Can you see me if I zoom in? Oh, I can't. Allahu Akbar. Khair, inshallah. But yeah, first of all, these are all reflections about our relationship with the Quran. Yeah. So, as a teacher, before you teach the Quran to other people, you actually need to know what is the relationship that it's demanding from us as well, from itself. Right? And you can also then act on that, and you're teaching in that mindset, that mind frame. So, we know that Allah says He's made it easy to remember in the Quran. Right? So, it's easy to remember. So, what does that mean? Does it mean that you can easily memorize a surah or easily memorize the whole Quran very easily without effort?
No.
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 So what that means is you have access to learning it, and if you try, you will learn. And Allah says in a verse I'll show you later on, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Have a taqwa of Allah, and Allah will teach you. So as long as you got this, you will learn, right? And obviously, there's a lot more. It's very broad. This being easy to remember. What does it mean to be easy to remember? That's one aspect. There's another aspect where if you've heard the reminder, if you have taqwa, then you will be able to act on it. For example, so this is what it's talking about. So ease, yeah, as it says here, does not mean effortless mastery. It means that Allah has opened the doors for recitation, memorization, reflection, and recall. For teachers, okay, it means we should never speak in a way that makes the Quran feel inaccessible or reserved for only gifted people. Allah's made the Quran for everyone, right? And He made that clear in this verse. So instead, we should build confidence in people, celebrate any small gain in their knowledge, even if it's small, and design learning pathways that match the way Allah made the Quran approachable. And we've learned through 10 principles that repetition is not a failure of method, right? But it's the method itself. Right? Repetition is the training. It is the way you learn. Repetition with time and testing. So it could take time, but that's natural. It's supposed to take time. It's supposed to take repetition as well. They're supposed to have many mistakes. Because their mistakes, whatever their mistakes are, and you will find this with teaching, it shows where their level is. If they were starting from a really, really, really low level, you wouldn't know until you start teaching them and you start testing them that they're taking long to learn. Why are they taking long to learn? Maybe there's other things that they're not familiar with. they're not familiar, so they're actually trying to get familiar with those things first. And one problem with teachers is that they don't recognize that. They won't recognize that there are things before what they are teaching them currently. So they try to force what they're teaching them at this place, and they're ignoring what is underneath. So as a teacher, you will one big skill you need to learn is to know where is this person, where is this guy's level actually. It appears that he's reciting, but there's something else missing. There's something else missing that is there. It's actually a long time ago. He didn't do this. He didn't do this. He didn't do this. He must. So he needs to get familiar with this and get familiar with that and familiar with that, and build familiarity. Obviously, through the 10 principles. Okay. So look, there, as it says, it invites you to ask in every lesson whether you're creating a space where students can actually remember through revision, meaningful connection, and constant exposure. So constant repetition, for example, of whatever they need. Okay. So it's a teacher's job to help that divine ease become visible in the lives of your students. And that's another point that's very important. As a teacher, your job is to make things easy. What is your job?
To make
Things
to make
easy.
it easy.
To make it easy. So in whatever way you can, make it easy for them students to embody the knowledge that you want to pass on. Yeah. Okay. Reciting the command to recite measured
Wait,
recitation.
you froze for like a minute.
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
what you said. I don't know what you said for the past minute. You froze.
Oh, I froze.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the same with Alex.
No, maybe I thought you just stopped talking.
Did we finish this one?
No. I thought you were going to talk about falsehood. But
No,
yeah,
I
we
didn't.
said
Yeah,
made easy for
that's
remembrance.
fine. That's fine. Yeah, I didn't talk about this. I just said that we'll touch upon a few of these, but not all of them, and you can read the rest.
Okay. Sure.
So one thing I wanted to touch upon is this command that Allah says in what? وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. So follow or recite the Quran with a measured following or measured recitation, right? And it can mean a few things, but yeah, tartil means you're measuring, you're making your recitation measured or balanced, okay, and deliberate. So, meaning that you're clear in your recitation. So this is one of the foundations of tajweed, right? And so this ayah is, it shows the adab that Allah wants from you to recite. So tajweed is not just a science we're learning to recite it properly because we want to, but Allah actually told us to. Allah told us to do this with the Quran, and that is the proper manners with the words of Allah that are great, right? So these are the greatest words that exist. So the manners for that are that they are recited clearly, right, with tartil. So not with laziness, but revering the words, giving every letter its due, pausing where the meaning calls for pausing, okay, allowing the listeners to hear the actual message rather than surviving a recitation. And that is a powerful saying there, because a lot of recitation nowadays is rushed. And it's as if you're trying to survive the time that someone's reciting when you're in a gathering, for example, and there's someone reciting Quran for the first part. They say, make it short, do this, do that. And, it's as if the recitation is not the main part, but it is the main part. Allah's words is always the main part. and most important. Okay, that's fine from there. In not abandoning it, so Allah mentioned the Prophet ﷺ say that these people,
Oh,
my people, have deserted the Quran. That's a complaint on the Day of Judgment. Now, our job as a teacher again is what? To make it easy and to have an attachment to the Quran and solidify the attachment and revive the heart towards the Quran consistently. So every lesson can actually be an act of what? Rescue. Imagine one of your students, you don't know how they are with the Quran. Maybe they're inconsistent, most likely, as they're learning and they're trying. So that lesson of yours, what they come to, is an opportunity to call the heart back to the Quran after it's been maybe deserted from it. I'll come back to it. Allah says the Quran is a healing as well. So through our teaching, that should show. Right? So the teaching should be gentle. And it should be taught with certainty that this Quran is a source of cure for what? A lot of things that maybe we can't see and can see also. It's a guidance for those who have taqwa. And that is the first highest priority for when you are reciting Quran. Whether you're learning Tajweed or Arabic or whatever you're learning, before all of that comes taqwa. And you can't benefit without it. And you can't teach without it, as you will see. Right? Because otherwise, like I said before in the previous one, right? Purpose, you can't teach without it, otherwise it will be hollow. Taqwa is the same. Taqwa shows that you know what you're doing, but your purpose is to share this word of Allah, this conversation. Taqwa means that you know this is the word of Allah. This is Allah speaking here. So that's the reverence for the words come up, and then the benefit also from the Quran comes into your life because you have taqwa. If without it, the teaching will also be hollow because you will think, what's the point of teaching? Because you will feel like you're only teaching letters or words that don't have any weight without taqwa. But if you have taqwa, then you'll see the benefit in your own life and you'll see the benefit it can make in others too. Then there's purpose there. Then you'll teach with a lot of passion because you realize what people are missing in their life and they need it. With Quran. Right. I'll touch on this one lastly. Gradually strengthening the heart, the Quran does. So the Quran is a source of strength, right? And it was revealed gradually. So one point is don't rush a student or yourself or be frustrated if you're going slowly but you're putting effort in towards the Quran. Like don't be frustrated with how much they are progressing if they're not progressing too much, but you are doing as exactly what you should be doing. Because the journey is gradual, whether it's gradual on the tongue or the heart. Like whatever you're training, right? As long as you're doing as you should be doing, there's something happening there. There's something happening. Might be a transformation in the heart first. For example, I'll give you an example so you can understand. A student that is not as responsive to learning. So in the beginning, he didn't learn much because, right, he is not into it. His mind's not there. Now, while he's in your lessons, you do teach him things that get him to know the importance of the Quran, and not just that, attach his heart to it and give him purpose towards it, right? And relevance in his own life. And with time, he develops this kind of reverence for the Quran and attachment that he should actually wants to learn this thing. So whether it's from there and then he actually starts learning. So whether it's from that place over there, it could be your student could be over there, or they could be past that, and they could be developing in another area, which is what they're actually developing their tajweed, the recitation. Both of them look like they're in different levels. This one doesn't look like he's maybe learning anything. This one does, but there is stuff going on. So do you get that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there, and this is a big point, that the heart is the main thing, the main focus, as we'll see. So the first principle, the first priority is taqwa and attachment, right? As we were talking about. Everything begins with your attachment to the Quran, your heart, and everything returns to it as well. Those words, they don't go out as words, they come back to your heart to affect that. Right? So the Quran is priority, is its main focus is there. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's for. So before a teacher can nurture the Quran in another heart, the teacher must also first carry taqwa in their own, as your mirror, and you are a mirror. I have seen this with you guys, that especially in the start, I remember, like I remember whatever I would do or teach, it would, or not even teach, the way I carried myself with whatever I do, it shows in the student. Like for example, if I'm strict in a lesson, for example, and a student sees me and he's always seeing me as being strict, and I'm not softening at any moment in time. If I don't soften at any moment of time, they'll see that and they'll think, okay, this is the way I teach. This is the way I'll do it when I'm teaching. So, and there is moments for strictness, and most of the time that, especially for kids, being strict is very important with conditions, but you also have to show them softness as well. And that's the main thing, is you actually developing the kids' hearts and their attachment. And you see, as I've seen with my children in the madrasa, that they've developed a passion for learning the Quran. In the beginning, it wasn't like that, but it developed because we would have conversations, and they're very important, because even if you think, oh, conversation is taken away from learning is after your attachment, and the reason for learning is to impact your heart again, and then with that impact from the Quran, take those qualities of the Quran to affect your character and your daily life. So if that's the purpose of it, then the heart is the main thing, right? So taqwa is the most important thing. Attachment, creating attachment to the Quran is the most important thing. A teacher of he's not my teacher, but I sat with him once. He's also a student of Sheikh Ibn Suwaid, Syrian. He came to this country, I don't know how long ago, but he's taught many people in different countries. And he advised me, saying that if people are not as passionate towards the Quran, even in countries where you can understand the Quran because there's Arabic around you, then, and obviously there are a lot of people that do, but there are still people that don't. And there's a lot of fitna because of the West in those countries. So they get detached from it. If that's happening there, and what about a country like the UK where the understanding of Arabic isn't there? And you're surrounded by Western influences. Then what about their attachment to the Quran? So it makes it even more important and the highest priority that you're building their heart towards the attachment of Quran. That is the main focus before you get into technical things. Once the heart is there, that you can go into technical stuff and teach and let them practice. So let's go through this. So yeah, a teacher is a mirror. What they reflect in the man is their presence, their patience, and their sincerity. If you're not sincere when they're teaching, they'll feel it. And they'll then, if they teach them later on, they won't be sincere unless they learn to be sincere later on. but they'll take your teaching style. They'll learn. They'll use that. The first teaching style they'll use is the one they saw, okay? Unless they relearn. So that shapes student more than most explanations do. Taqwa doesn't mean just fear Allah, but awe, love, hope in Allah, living conscious that Allah is there and He's conversing with you through this Quran, right? Okay, good. Now this is the main thing. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. Now this is a rule, right? And we basically explained it already. Have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. You won't benefit from information alone. You benefit from a heart that's present with the information that transforms you. So you will actually transform and the knowledge is transformation. So that knowledge will actually become useful when you have taqwa. And you will learn more when you have taqwa. You'll have more insight when you have taqwa because you can see further away. You can see further down the line. You can see a lot of things, right? So taqwa is directly linked to divine teaching, meaning that one who has taqwa is opened up to understanding and wisdom that others are veiled from, which is very true. I'll give you an example, a personal example. The Qur'an and Tajweed with me. Tajweed, after I learnt it and after I practiced all of it and I felt something was different in my recitation, I had to look for what it was. What was this thing that's different that I can feel? There was some meaning that I didn't understand from what I had practiced. Because what I had practiced was just letters. It was letters correctly, correct letters, correct expression of the Quran. But I didn't understand why is it feeling different? Why is it feeling so much more powerful? Then I realized it in what I was reciting when I was pondering on what it means. And if I did not think that Allah is actually saying these words, I wouldn't have gone further down in researching every letter that I was reciting. Like, why is this letter? Why am I completing it? And why is it affecting me so differently than if I wasn't to complete it? And this med, why am I stretching it? And if I don't stretch it and it's incorrect, what's different about it? Right? You wouldn't think about what's different if you didn't think it's Allah's words, if you didn't have taqwa. But you gain understanding that every letter and every sound actually does have an impact, and you understand more about that if you have taqwa. That's an example. Do you have examples for yourself?
Examples where
Where
repeat it.
if you had taqwa, you would understand more. If you didn't have taqwa, you wouldn't have.
I would understand more.
Of something, of the Quran, for example. It's okay if you don't.
You give me like another example of what you specifically talking about.
Like the al-dallin.
I was
So
thinking of that actually.
Yes.
The people who are astray.
Yeah.
Like why is it elongated and so forth?
Yes.
To
Yeah.
emphasize it.
That's right. And by the way, just as a note as well, emphasizing is very general to say. Emphasizing what?
The people who are astray.
Emphasizing the people who are astray.
How far they are
What
astray.
does that mean? Yeah, so you need to add a word that completes the meaning of what you're saying. So emphasizing a word, okay, so what? What do you mean emphasizing a word? It's stronger. What do you mean stronger? What's stronger? Okay, the number is more. Okay, there's many people astray. And the loss of them, the amount that they are actually astray, as in how deeply they are astray. Yeah. Say stuff like that.
The heaviness
Yeah.
of the topic
Yes.
and the heaviness of
Yes.
the letter.
Yeah. For example, yeah. So
The heaviness of the letter, yeah.
good. Yeah. There you go. So be specific there, because I remember even when I started to get into this, I would say, okay, this is emphasizing this, but then I also realized that what does that even mean though? Then you need to actually elaborate a bit more to understand what's actually going on. Okay. So have taqwa yourself, nurture any student. Without taqwa, teaching is hollow. Do you understand this?
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, it makes sense. You just
Without taqwa, teaching is hollow.
first, like, you wouldn't even be passionate about it in the first place. Yeah, taqwa. And then it's I don't know. There's like no driving force to say, like, you're not
Yeah, there's no
like,
driving.
if the student doesn't improve, like, you're not really gonna care.
Uh,
Maybe
yeah. Exactly that. There's no driving force. Like, there's no purpose, because you probably don't have any importance to it yourself. Like, you don't think you're actually making any impact in any way. You're just teaching sounds then, and that's it. That's what it would go to, right? Do you get that? It will just come down to just teaching sounds,
Mhm.
right? But we're not just teaching sounds. What we're teaching actually is the Qur'an, is the expression of the Qur'an, Allah's words, and there's a lot of meaning in here. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So, yep, with taqwa, teaching is worship, and it's completely meaningful. Everything is rewarded. Okay. So this is the first and number one priority, and this is always going to be at the top of your mind. This is the goal. Okay. Good. Practical taqwa in the classroom begins long before lesson starts. Yeah. This is to do with your own personal life. It looks like, for example, making dua before you begin teaching, or being gentle with the student when you're correcting them, and not getting frustrated. No, not letting a lesson pass without a reminder of Allah in any way, for example. Like looking at some part of the Qur'an that they recited and explaining a bit of it. And what? A teacher who goes home and recites themselves. Right? That's big, because if you're not doing it yourself, then you're not going to be able to pass it on properly. Maybe you can, but maybe it's like that's because you have taqwa. You have taqwa and you're trying yourself, and you have the skills to do it, and you're teaching the skills maybe as well, and you're doing as much as you can. But if you're completely hollow from it, right? You have got no attachment to the Quran at all, and taqwa is not there, right? Then you're not passing anything on. Okay, good. Right, that's it. So that was the introduction to teaching the Quran. Yeah, may Allah make us amongst those who have taught the Quran. They're big figures. The Prophet ﷺ himself, Uthman ibn Affan, Abdullah ibn Amr, Mas'ud, all these teachers that came before us, Ibn al-Jazari, right? Shatibi, right? May Allah make us amongst the best people who learn the Quran and teach it. Ameen. That's all, inshallah. Any questions from there as well?
What about balancing like your own learning with teaching?
Oh, good question. Very good question. All right. So, personally, myself, because I finished my journey of Tajweed itself, I've been teaching, but I've also been teaching part time because I've been in uni, right? Now I finished uni, I found that I've got more time. For example, so if you have time outside of teaching, like for example, like I do now, you can learn on your own, right? Or get teachers that you can go further with. But other than that, you will need an anchor as well, an anchor to the Quran. And then another thing I'm going to say, but the anchor is your salah. Whatever you learned, you are using it in your salah. Right? For example, learning new bits of tajweed, for example, and then so you're saying it correctly in your salah. Learning the meaning of what you're saying, so you're expressing that in your salah and acting on it. Okay. And then after that as well, teaching is a big part of your learning, and you'll find that you will learn a lot, and you'll research just because you need to teach. So personally, for example, I researched more into, in a lot more detail, sound symbolism, meanings in sounds, because I wanted to uh, give you the teachings or express from myself this what I can feel when I'm reciting the Quran, but I couldn't teach it in a structured manner because so I saw an academic paper that was written on it that gave me more insight and actually structured it and went from the top down from a long time ago, from old languages up to now, and looked at sound symbolism in different languages. A proper research paper, just giving a lot of insight, so that my mind now is completely structured in what this is, and you know, then now I'm able to also teach it in a better manner. Even if it's things you already know, for example, tajweed musawwar, you will look at it maybe in a different manner when you're teaching it because you need to express it to the students to make sure they've understood in many different ways so that they can use one of them at least to be able to apply it. So maybe through drawing it, maybe through seeing it physically. So you're expressing it in so many different ways that you're learning yourself how to express this knowledge, and you're learning different parts of it. And subhanallah, I think I would say once you get very deep into a science like this, you recognize a lot of things that will overlap with different sciences as well. Like tafsir, for example, myself, tafsir, the meanings of the Quran have overlapped a lot with tajweed through when I've been researching after my training. So yeah, you will master the science when you teach, and you will get more knowledge. So I think I've mentioned 3 things there. Do you have any other questions?
I do not.
Okay, nice one. Assalamu alaikum. Take care.